That's my first question. And then my second question, and the one we copy the password file, but you cannot copy one was the same name. That's why my two first preoccupation for now.
Okay. When it comes to the first question, I told you guys that you use the GB file name convert only if the directory structure of the standby is different from the directory structure of the primary. So it means that if you decided to use Oradata ORCL on primary and on the standby as well, you don't need GB file name convert.
Oh, okay.
Right. Okay. The second one was the password file. You said that what happened with that? You wanted to copy?
The password file, when you try to copy, is the same name. You cannot copy.
You cannot copy the same name?
The same name, you cannot copy.
That means somebody already has have the same database name maybe on the standby server. Not correct?
Yeah, but that's what I say. The way we can copy the password file, that's why I was just saying. Oh, just
when I say copy the password file, you guys know where the password file is located on the primary database, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you said that you were unable to copy, or whenever you were trying to copy was failing.
When I try to copy, in the primary server is fair. Or we have to go to that one I'm not sure yet. But I try to copy to primary server is fair.
From the primary to the standby or what? It should not fail. Normally, it should not fail. Even if you have the same file on standby, normally, whenever you copy a file from a server to another, even if the file is already on the target server, it will override that one. So, yeah, maybe the syntax. You use the SCP command to copy secure copy. You should use the SCP command. You put the file name. I think you put, if you are doing as Oracle, you put Oracle at, you put the target server name and something like that. So it should not be an issue. Okay, so you are able to do that. You will be able to copy that. Does it make sense?
Makes sense. The other one, it makes me just a little confused. If you can clarify me.
Which one makes you confused?
Is it the TNS? When we go, we have to add the TNS name, the primary server, the primary database server, and the standby server. But is the same name for the primary server. I cannot go add a second to the standby server, the TNS name, but I don't understand why, because some when I was doing my research, I saw people make the different name is look like add and the primary server, it go add in the standby server, but for it working. But I don't understand, but I don't try that one. I know was standing for try this one. That's one stopped me.
So you're not understanding, okay, maybe I'm not getting your issue, sir, but you are saying you're not understanding about the TNS issue, or you're not understanding
I don't understand why you go do the TNS issue.
Okay.
To fix it.
The TNS name, normally, in order for you guys learn that in order for you to ping primary one server, one database residing on a different server, you should add a database on your TNS name order. Okay. But yes. I know that maybe your confusion is because you are looking at the database name. Okay. Now, what's happening here is that both database, even though they may have the same database name, will have the different GB unique name. Different unique name. Okay. So what does it mean? It means that on your TNS name of the primary, okay, you can add both information. So you can add the GB unique name. You can add one entry for the GB name of the primary and another entry for the GB unique name of the standby. So now you are using the GB unique name. Okay. That's to add it. okay? And you do the same on the standby. So whatever you add on the primary, you just copy that and put on the standby. Why am I saying that the ideal scenario is for you to have database name of the primary equal database name of the standby? That's the ideal scenario. But there's also an option, a possibility to do different database name. You will see a lot of people, some people doing that, especially online. But what we make the data guard stuff to function, okay? It will work well for the application team only if they create a service. If they create a service and that service, okay, I'll just give a small briefing about service. I'm not going to explain more services on RAC. That's the last project, but I will give you a small briefing on service. What happened is what? You guys usually see service underscore name on your TNS name.ora. Okay. Normally, whenever you create any Oracle database, by default, Oracle will create, by default, there's a default service that will be created by Oracle. And that default service will be equal, the name of that service will be equal the GB unique name of the database by default. But now, what happens is, most of the time, that service name you guys use is also equal to this instance name. It means that if I give it to the application team will be able to access my instance directly. And since they can access my instance directly, and if for any reason, okay, I want to, to stop an application from accessing the database, or maybe I want to monitor, let's assume I also have multiple applications accessing the instance directly, it can also be more difficult for me to identify which application is causing bottlenecks or which application is the issue. So just to tell you guys that it is more complicated whenever application teams are using the default service name you guys are using to connect your database. Now what happens is, in real environment, I can tell you most of the time, real environment, we create another service. Now that service, we have a service name different from the one you guys know. And now that service name is the one you will give to the application team in order for them to connect. Now, if you don't want an application to connect, you can just stop that service. And if you stop that service, you don't need to stop the database instance. So that means you can just stop that service and the application has, because that service is stopped. That service is the only way they can use to connect. If you want to monitor the resources consumed by an application, you can just monitor through the service. You can just connect to the AWR and you will see from the AWR how much CPU, whatever is related to that service. So it's easier for you, the GBA, to monitor applications through the services. You can also monitor set resource management at the service level. You can say, okay, I will give only a certain percentage of CPU to this particular service. Let's assume you have multiple applications and you want to prioritize one application over another application, or you want to allocate equal amount of resources to those applications. You can do that easily using services. But if you don't have services, one application can get more resources than another application because all of them are sharing everything. Okay, so now that was about the service. So now for you guys, if somebody now configure DataGuard and use the different database name, with the service, they are capable to meet all the requirements of DataGuard. So that means if we create a service now, and that service now, when you are creating a service, I don't care whether you are using file system or ASM, we talk about ASM. When you will create a service now, you can create that service, and at the creation, if you can use a procedure, GBMS attain service, something like that, to create a service if you don't have ASM. If you have ASM, I will talk about the SRVCTL tool when we get there on RAC. So you can create a service and you decide that that service will be running only on the primary database. And that service will never run on the standby. What does it mean? It means that the service will be only on the primary. So if I even have more than one standby, that service will be running there. So the application will be able to connect only to the primary database. Now, if the primary database fails and another standby has to take over, even if the database name of that standby, that will become the new primary, right? Even if the database name is different, that service will move to that new primary because that service was meant to run only on primary databases. So in this scenario, because the previous primary failed, right, and there was a whole change, the new primary now, that service will be running on the new primary. So in this scenario now, the application team will be able to connect. So both scenarios are possible, okay? But I said that the ideal scenario, what is frequently used, what is frequently seen in the environment is that database name are equal. But that will not prevent you from configuring your TNS name or ORA because the change the ORA, you just have to specify the GB unique name when you get to the service name. I don't know if you understood what I said.
Thank you so much. I think the idea to do the same name for buffer, I think it's a good idea because if you can figure out that one, but the different name is not too big deal.
Yeah, yes, that's what I'm saying. The ideal scenario, what I would prefer would be for you to use the same GB name. Okay. But if you're having too much challenge, it's up to you. But I want you to understand the scenario when you guys are having different GB name, how in an environment they will handle traffic, they will handle application in case of failover or switchover with database services. Okay?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. Questions, guys?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can you get me?
Yes, I can hear you. Not that good, but it's okay. Go ahead, try.
Okay. I'm a little bit confused about like the service name and the global name because when I saw it on listener, I was a little bit confused on what to put. And I also found out that there's this application tool called Net Manager and Netcar. I don't know their difference. Their differences. Or what they are used for.
Okay. Okay. The service name and the global name. Sometimes the service name can be different from the global name. The global name, most of the time, you will see most of the time, okay, they can add a domain name to a service, to the service name to make the global name. But in some scenario, you can also see the service name equal to the global name. That is mainly whenever you guys are creating a database, okay? On the standby side, that is where you can see the difference. But whenever you guys are creating a database on GBCA, most of the time you guys can notice that from there, the global name is equal to the database name is equal to the instance name. So, but normally the global name, we get the instance name and we add to that domain name, okay? The domain name. So that's why you can see maybe the database is ORCL, you may see something like ORCL dot, and maybe the domain name is brontechsolution.com. And now you can now see orcl.brontechsolution.com. So global name most of the time just add a domain name on top of the existing service name. Okay, so you will see that a lot because it's used a lot by companies when it comes to the global name. And it's also, as you said, you can find it on the listener. It is very possible to find on the listener. But for you guys, it's not mandatory to add it on your global name, okay? Unless you have a domain name that you created. But since you don't worry about it, you can configure your listener without, without having to add a particular domain name on top of the global, on top of the service name. Okay, so it's not mandatory for you. But at some point you can do that. You can do that as well. Company do that a lot. You will see a lot of global name. Even the one that we display to you guys today, you will see a domain name on it. So yeah, it's just something like that. And now when it comes to Netcar and Net Manager, those are tools to manage, okay? And these are not networking tools. Netcar particularly helps you as well to create listeners, to create chainless connection. That is almost the same thing Net Manager does. But I had sometimes better experiences with Net Manager when it was coming to register a database, you know, to a listener. Something that sometimes I was having big challenges with Netcar. Net Manager was able to help me on solving that. I haven't used both extensively, like I can tell you where I saw the difference, but I mostly use Net Manager, okay? Because from the Net Manager, I can easily identify all the listener and all the services running on that listener and all the Oracle Home in that listener. And if I want to, I can add another service name, or I can add another instance to the listener. And the configuration is also quite easy. So both do almost the same thing. Unless you are a network person, you may see the difference. But me, myself, they look alike. For me, you can do the same thing. Okay, I was able to do the same thing with both. So I can create a listener from there. I can create connection, chainless connection from there. And I can register a database to the listener from both. So I cannot tell you I know a big difference between both. Unless you go on Google, you type the difference. Now they will give you the difference between Netcar and Net Manager. But both can help you to manage network resources, manage chainless connection. Okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, questions? Is there a group here that already started the data guard configuration?
So we started, my group and I started yesterday, but we got stuck.
Okay, if it's just yesterday, that means you guys have time to troubleshoot, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, just yesterday is very recent, right? So I can, since I will come back on Friday for 1 hour again, 1 hour or 1 hour and a half, I will check again how far you are. If now it will make at least 2 to 3 days, so I can consider it to be something really challenging. Okay, so it's because sometimes based on experience, sometimes you guys can work on something the first session, and the second session, before the second session, you even figure out what was the issue. So that's why I don't always want to intervene on anything, any issue you face the first time, because sometimes you can sleep, you wake up, you see the same thing, and within 5 minutes you resolve it. So let me give you 2 days or 3 days, and Friday, if you are still at that level or you're having any other issue, we'll take a look at it. Okay? I think it's better. Yeah, that's very good. At least you guys started. That's good. Okay, that's the best thing. Okay. What about I think Greenberg group? The group that should present Monday. You guys already started doing something.
Spring. We started yesterday too.
Okay. Is it moving? Are you guys trying?
We got stuck as well.
Oh, okay.
So we're working on it.
Keep up. Today, maybe what I will present, I will present today to help everybody. I will present something real, and that can help you guys to know, to validate some point. Okay, so, all right.
So before you do that, can I have one concern, please?
Go ahead, please. Any concern?
Okay. Okay. So I had trouble when I wanted to connect to the standby and to call on Arman. To call on yeah, I already did everything, did my TNS entry. Now when I wanted to call on the auxiliary database, it kept showing me that the login was incorrect. Meanwhile, I had used the same password. Okay, I used the same password in the primary database and it went through. Now I wanted to do it on a standby database. It kept failing.
So you are able to connect to Arman from the primary, but on the standby you cannot.
Even when I use a standby to connect to the primary, it went through. But I want to connect to the auxiliary, it didn't go through.
Okay.
So I don't know if you can brief me on it.
Yeah. First of all, I have to know how you are connecting because I don't know your syntax. And before I even get there at that level, okay, what are you using? Are you using documentation from Google or from a friend or from Canvas? What are you using as a base?
Okay, I had my one of my homeboy gave me a script.
Okay.
Actually an old script from Bontech, so I'm following it.
No, it's not an old script from Bontech because we don't have a script in Bontech. You have to say his or her own script he or she used in Bontech. I think it's better to say like that, right?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because we don't have a script we are sharing, Bontech. So just to tell you that I'm not sure whether the script will work for you or the script work well for the person before. Okay, so I cannot tell you whether it's applicable on 11G or 12 and so on. So yeah, it's better to rephrase it. So the script was on 11G or 12C, first of all.
Okay, the script was on 12. Actually, it was on 11G, but I was using it on 12C. It was really going good until I faced that issue.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I think whenever you are failing to connect to the standby to Arman, especially the auxiliary instance, there are multiple causes behind. Were you able to start the standby using the P5 first of all?
Yes, I was able to. I was able to do it, and I put it on no mount state.
Okay, good. Was the listener of the primary and the listener of the standby able to listen both the primary and standby databases?
Yes, they were all good.
Right. That means the listener of the primary, right, is able to listen to the primary and the standby at the same time, and the listener of the standby is able to listen to the primary and the standby at the same time. Was it the scenario?
Yes, sir. I'm sure of that.
Okay, I may need to validate that one as well. Okay. Another check. Okay. Let me think again about the ping was working, right? JNS ping.
Yeah, I did the ping on the primary and the standby.
Okay. What about the password file?
I think that was the issue. Because I sent it to the standby server and I renamed it. So I first of all renamed it wrongly, and when I noticed, I came and adjusted it. And since it kept failing, and I created a new password file in the primary database, I sent it again. I was unable to.
Okay. And that password file you sent now, the second one you sent now, you said that now when you sent it again, you did not rename it.
I did. I renamed it the second time very well.
What about the first time?
The first time I didn't rename it. I didn't rename it well.
Okay. Now try to rename it again and give the same name. Okay. And try to continue with that.
What you mean the same name? Like I shouldn't rename it?
Yes, try not to rename it and see what it gives. Okay. It's not mandatory for you. It's not mandatory for you to rename it. So try to see, because if you are able to connect, as you said, to the auxiliary instance on the primary, correct? And cannot connect to the auxiliary instance on the standby, it means I'm suspecting the password. Right. And
I also noticed another thing that at the end of the auxiliary, I put the R sign, then I put the database name. So when I kept putting the database name, it kept failing. And at one point in time, I didn't put it, so it connected, and it shows that I'm connected to both the primary database and the auxiliary database. So when I tried to duplicate, it shows that I was not Oracle. I was not connected to Oracle on the standby database.
So I want to know your connection string. How do you connect to Arman? What was the path? How do you connect? Arman target what?
Okay, Arman target, I put the target as sys and the password, that's OneTech1, and I put R and the primary database name,
Mm-hmm.
and I said auxiliary, I put the auxiliary password, the auxiliary user, that's sys, and the password, then I use the R and I put the standby database name. So
Okay.
so when I didn't put the name, I noticed I was able to log in when I didn't put the name of the standby.
When you did not put, or when you put?
When I didn't put.
Okay. So when you just put the primary name, you did not put the auxiliary?
Yes.
Or you put auxiliary, you put sys, you put the password, and you just kept it like that?
Yes, just like that.
And you were able to connect?
I was able to connect.
And the auxiliary instance, what was the open mode of the auxiliary instance?
It was on no mount mode.
No mount.
Yes.
Okay. And once you launch the duplicate script, you had an error. It says what?
Yes, I had an error. It shows that I couldn't duplicate because the auxiliary database is not. That is, I was unable to connect to the auxiliary database. The script actually started running and it failed. Then it shows that error.
Unable to connect your auxiliary instance.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So yes, you were not able to be. You were not authenticated. Okay. So that is authentication issue. So yeah. Try again to rename your password file and try to launch it again. Okay. And try to put instead of just putting auxiliary, you put the username and the password. Try to put you put the standby GB unique name and see. Okay.
So okay, I shouldn't put auxiliary.
No, put auxiliary, right? After
Yes.
put the username, the /password, and I think you should try to put you put the standby GB unique name, right?
Okay.
I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
I think the GB unique name is the unique name for both the primary and the standby.
They are different. The GB unique name are different, right? The GB unique name should be different. They should not have the same GB unique. They may have the same GB name if you want to. Do you decided to have the same GB name, or you use the GB name?
No, I didn't use the same.
Okay, so more likely they have the same. The standby GB unique name is equal to the standby GB name. I think that should be like that. So if that means you can use the standby GB name then. So when you put sys/password after auxiliary, try to put the standby, GB name at standby GB name. And at that level, if you are not able to connect, so that means it's authentication issue.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yes.
So try that one and see.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no problem. Okay. Questions for me, guys?
Yes, please. I just wanted to know. So you said that both databases have to have the same name. So is there going to be anything to differentiate them both? Because what we did, we created one with the primary has one name, and then we added STD, yeah, to the standby.
Yeah, it's good, right? That's why I said that for you guys, I can tolerate. Okay.
Yeah.
I can tolerate, but I will show you an example now, real environment stuff, and you will see what I'm talking about. I can tolerate it because I know that a lot of people had a lot of challenge with that same DB name. And that's why I explain now the scenario. That scenario you're talking about now, that's why I explain the benefit of services when you are getting in that type of scenario you're having now, okay? So I can tolerate that one. But I want you guys to keep in mind that the best option will be for you to have the same GB name. Okay? The best option.
Okay.
Mhm. So what we differ is the GB unique name. That's why we talk about GB unique name. Right? That is what we differ. So it means that when you select GB unique name on the primary, you select GB name on the standby, that they'll be different. But when you select GB name on the primary, select GB name on the standby, they'll be the same. That is for those who want to use database name on the primary equal database name on the standby. So it's very, very possible for you to do that. Okay, you can keep the same directory structure on the primary and on the standby. You can keep the same path, everything the same. Okay, so but when you get to the P file of the standby, that is where the difference is, because on the P file of the standby, we have a parameter called GB_unique_name. That is what makes the difference. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does make sense.
Yeah. That's the only thing that will make the difference. Apart from that, you will not change anything else from the primary. Okay. Other small things may change, but those ones are not really related to the GB name or GB name. Other metrics may change, like file client, file server, for those who configure it, and also let me see. What can I have on the P file that is also important? Okay, log archive dest. Okay, because I know most of you will do. How will you guys do? I can imagine. You guys will set the log archive dest 1 on the primary, and log archive dest 2, right? And you guys maybe will copy that P file to the standby. And you will keep those parameters like that without editing, so that in case we have a failover or a switchover, those parameters now, log archive dest now we point now to the primary location. Let me take an example. Log archive, whenever you are on the primary server, you issue log archive dest_1. I told you guys that it should point to the primary archive destination. Log archive dest2 point to the standby archive destination. Because you are setting those parameters from the primary. Okay. You guys will use that P file, because you guys have to create a P file from SP file and send the P file across. And you guys will keep that. Most of you will keep. It will not fail. I can guarantee you data guide will not fail, because you kept those parameters like that. But imagine that primary becomes the standby, and the standby becomes the primary. Okay. Where will log archive dest point to? That log archive dest 1 that is on the new primary now, it's not pointing to that location even, because it was referencing the old primary. It was pointing to the old primary destination. So that means whenever you are copying your P file, you should also reverse. So that means if you the unlock archive dest 1, you put maybe service name, you put the primary name. Once you put it on the standby, you should change it to the standby name. So that now log archive dest 1 will be for the standby, and log archive dest 2 will be for the primary. So that in case there's a whole change, the standby can actually behave as a new primary, and the old primary becomes start behaving as a new standby. You may not understand it, but those who will try to do a failover switchover, you understand, you will see how it works, basically.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So we're going to do this once we transfer the P file to the standby database.
Correct. Yes. After the P file, after you transfer the P file.
Okay.
So, editing the standby P file. Yes.
So why can't we do it? Why can't we edit it while it's still in the primary?
No, because you edit it on the primary server. The primary server, we consider that change.
Oh, okay.
If now on the primary server, instead of putting log archive dest 1 to point to the primary, you set it to point to the standby. That means the primary, we consider log archive dest 1 to be, the the standby archive destination. So that's why you create a P5 first, because you need that P5 to be able to start the standby in normal stage. Now that P5 is the one you update so that it can, you update that P5 now to before you send that to the standby. So there are multiple things you update on it, and the log archives 1 and log archives 2 are some parameter you can also update once you send the P file across.
Okay.
Not mandatory, okay? But for somebody who is thinking about switch over or failover, you should do that.
Okay.
Sir, I have one quick question.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, we try to name the primary database and the standby database. Like the standby, the initial name we created for the database, we call it LANAM. And now we wanted to configure the data guard. So on the standby database for the primary database, we name it Capo, and the primary database we name it Capo, and the standby we name it, let me say, Che_STY, and
Okay.
it threw an error. So I didn't understand why it threw that error.
So okay. Do you think that I can know your error? You don't tell me the type of error you had. I cannot, right? I cannot know your error. You don't tell me what error. What was
Okay,
it?
can I give you the error code?
Yeah, I want the error itself, the name. What was it?
Okay, it shows Aura 02097 parameter cannot be modified because specified value is invalid.
Okay, specified value was invalid. What was the name? Because if that name is more than 8 characters, it should be invalid.
The name was good. The name was just 4 characters.
Okay.
So the other error below shows DB_unique_name Capo is not in data guard configuration.
DB_unique_name is not that Capo. Yes, when you set your parameters, you only set a parameter. That was in the beginning, or at what level do you get that error? Once you were trying to do what?
Once I was trying to issue the config parameter.
Log archive config?
Yes.
Okay, log archive config. And you specify the DB name of the primary and for the standby there.
Yes.
And you said that the standby DB name could not be do what?
They said Amandelic name Capo is not in data guard configuration.
Okay. So okay. Yeah. You only said something, okay? Because I think that parameter you set it after log archive dest.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it should not be an issue. You only said something. Okay. You only said something. You only said something. It should not be an issue.
So sir, we encountered that error in my group, and when we tried to rename it back to LANAM using lowercase ty, using lowercase, they all went through.
No, there's something wrong. Okay, I think there's something wrong you did, because it's not the name. That name should not be the issue. So I can just guarantee you. So you cannot tell me that you use maybe Capo_STBY it fails, and you use LANAM_STBY it succeeds. It should not make sense. It doesn't make sense. Okay, so something went wrong, and most of the time, I may need you to show me all the previous steps. Okay, so that I can check and tell you what has been the issue. Okay, but please don't think that the name was the problem. No, something went wrong. Maybe they set a different name before. I don't know, but I can guarantee there was something wrong behind. I can guarantee that. I can guarantee. I used 4 characters before, 5, 6. So It should not be an issue. Okay. So it should not be an issue. So I cannot really tell you what went wrong, but I can tell you something, you did something wrong somewhere. So that's the only thing I can tell you about that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Questions, guys? Question? Okay, while maybe some of you are preparing your questions, let me connect to my other laptop so that I can show you guys some stuff. It may help you. It might help you on your configuration. It might not. Maybe will not help some of you. Maybe will help. This one is something. Okay. 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 Let me see. Yeah. Let me join the Zoom. The Zoom ID is let me see the link. Zoom ID 380 620 3. Okay. Connect. Miss Renalda, can you let me in, please? Thank you. All right.
So Gaita, so among these projects, could like configuring like one of these projects from scratch be one of the interview questions?
Sure, of course.
From scratch?
What do you mean from scratch?
As in like having to create a standby database and all this.
Yeah, of course. They may ask you a high-level step of that, of Oracle configuration, of standby, of data configuration, using whatever step you use. Okay.
Okay.
An interview question. It will be an interview question, even.
No, I understand interview question, but I mean like practical. Can they ask you to do it?
In an environment?
Yes.
You say in the company or during the interview question? In a company itself?
Because you told me that they ask you, like you can, most interviews you have, they'll ask you to do some practical.
Okay, yes. No. In the practical, no. Sorry, they cannot. It will take time,
Okay.
Time. So in a practical, it's not complicated. It's just for those who are not practicing. Practical itself, they tell you, okay, what is the command to shut the database? What's the command to start up? What's the command? How do you enable archive log? How do you check if flashback is enabled? How do you check from SQL, the allele location? How do you check where the add-on? They just ask you, they just want to see if you have, you're just familiar with those common commands. All right. If they want to go further, they will say, okay, what's the command for backup? Type the command to backup. Check if the auto backup is on. How do you do that? Okay. If it's a rack, if it's a rack server, they will ask you, okay, what's the command to start up a rack database? What's the command to start up an instance? What's the command to stop a service? How do you enable load balancer, automatic load balancer? So, but they will not ask you to configure something. Does it make sense? So just quick questions so that they see if you have hands-on experience on those stuff.
Okay.
Right, yeah. I think that's the only thing they may ask. I'm not sure there's more than that. Yeah. All right. Let me do something. Yeah, so I think I can share my screen now. Use I want to connect to one of our database server. Yeah. So you can see that most of the time, this is how you'll be connecting an environment. You will never have Oracle password. Most of the time, you will connect using a credential, and you can just use a sudo, okay, to connect to Oracle user. Okay, so this is our primary. I know that you may not know, but I know that this is my primary, because we know how we name our server. And I will also call the standby. This is PXS. These are cloud server, so some stuff can be different, okay? The first step was different. That's why I did not even wanted to explain to you guys what I was doing here. So to connect to the cloud, sometimes you have to set up what we call some tunnels, and it can be different. So let me make it look clear so that, okay. Okay, let me clear the screen so that, okay, so I know this is my primary, this is my standby. Again, this is PHX1. What do I even use to connect here? Do I use, no, I use the same thing. No, this should be I should use DB2. Otherwise, I'm connecting to the same server from, all right, so on the primary, if I issue, the grepimon, yes, you guys can see database here. Okay, let's see this. Let's see the same thing here. You guys can see the database name is the same. So that means that's what I'm saying. The typical scenario is for the database name to be the same. So you see that from here, you may not know which one is the primary from the standby, unless you are internal at the OS level. So you see here, OMR. Let me see the host name here. Okay, let me confirm so that you guys know that these are different host names. This one is DB2. This one is DB1. So those are different servers. But you see the same instance name on in here. Same instance on in here. So now let's try to connect to that and see. And validate, okay. All right, select name, open node. database underscore role database. Okay. When you configure, you should have like this primary, the open mode, and the database name here now. Let me see the DB unique name. The DB unique name here is the same as the DB name. Now, let's try to do the same thing here and see the difference. That's why I said if it's your first time to connect your database and you don't know whether that database has data guide or not, always issue this full command. Don't be lazy and just issue select name. Select database role, because this is the parameter. Even in an interview room, they ask you how will you know which one is the primary one and the standby? This one helps you. But for the standby, you show something different here. Okay, let me show you guys that. You guys can see here that the database name is the same, but opening read-only with apply. Here you see physical standby. Okay, normally I told you guys that physical standby is opening mount state. Okay, so both physical and active standby, you always see physical standby active, but the open mode will be different. For physical standby, it won't be like this. Okay, I think it will be mount, something like that. But active is read-only with apply. So whenever I see read-only with apply, it's active data guide, because it is open in read-only and the MRP can apply the logs. Why it's open in read-only? Only active data guide can do that, not physical standby. So you can see here that this is the easiest way. This column is the best column to know whether I'm dealing with a primary or standby. So in an interview home, never forget this one, because I can just see that this one is primary for the standby. Okay. And if I say DB unique name, you can now see the DB unique name is what differs them. They cannot have the same DB unique name, no matter what. That is what makes the difference between the primary and the standby is the DB unique name. You see here that this one is _s, but this one is the same as the DB name. All right. So yes, because most of the time when you create a database with GBC or whatever, the DB name is always equal to the DB unique name. But the standby, you will have to change it. Okay. For those who want to use the same DB name, okay, the DB unique name should be different. But I know some of you already are using this different DB name, so it's also fine. So that is the first check. That is how it should look like at the end. For you, again, it might not be read-only with apply because you guys are doing a physical standby. So it might be, I think it's mount or something like that. You guys will check that. Okay. So what is the second check? Okay. The second check is the listener. How it should look like. On the primary, you should be able to see the DB unique name of the primary and the DB unique name of the standby. Okay. So here we are using services. Okay, but we are using services here. We are not using. So that means on our chain in the order, this service is for the service we created for the standby. Okay. So that means it might not be the same like you, but this service is the service for the primary. So that means for you guys, you should be able to see the standby DB unique name here, somewhere here. Okay. So the listener should be able to listen both the primary and the standby. On the primary, and also on there. Also on the standby. You should be able to see the DB name, DB name on the primary, and DB name on the standby. Both should be listen, not one here or one here. Without that, Arma GPK will never succeed. I think you guys had that experience before. So Arma GPK will never succeed. So make sure that the listener can listen. Now, how will the listener configuration look like? I know some people may ask me. So you guys know where the listener is located, okay? The listener may look like, you guys already know this part, but you guys see this SID listener. So that means this SID listener may contain the primary database name. That means the primary database with the global name. You can see here the global name as I told your classmate here. This is in this scenario, the global name, okay? They created a service name equal to the global name, okay? But in some scenario for you guys, sometimes your service name is just this one, right? So in this scenario, the global name, they will add a domain name after that. So this is we have our way of naming, you know, our service name. So it's not, we have our formula of doing that. And that is just in Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. You will not find it anywhere. So I don't want to talk about our way of creating services because Oracle will automatically create a service whenever you create a database on the cloud. So, but I don't want to spend too much time on why we are having all this stuff now. So you can see here that this is the primary, okay? Here they are using the SID, that means the instance name. And where is the standby? This is the standby. You see here that this is the service for the standby, and the SID name is the same. The same, but the service name is different because they have different DB unique name. Because they have different services, running on them. So that means this is the parameter I wanted to throw more light on. You don't need to have 4, okay? So that means for you guys, you just have one primary one. So you may have a block like this. So this one will just be the block for the standby, this one the block for the primary. And you should have the same thing on the standby server. Whatever you have here on this listener, you also have the same thing on the other listener. Another important point, the Oracle home of the standby should be the same as the Oracle home of the primary. Some of you, if you are using your classmate server and the person installed an Oracle software on a different home, ask the person to rename that home. Otherwise, you will have a lot of issues with the listener. So the home should be the same.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
When you hear, if we created the same name, the difference is going to be just what kind of difference we go have for our case?
The difference is at the level of global name.
The global name.
Yeah. If you're using SID name, the database can be the same if we are using the same database name. For those who are using the same database name, it can be the same. But if you are using service underscore name, that could be different. There could be different, right? Because you will now put the DB unique name at this level. So for the DB unique name, you guys are having different DB unique name, right?
So I have a question.
You guys are having different DB unique name, right? Can you guys hear me?
For now, yeah.
Oh, you could not hear me before?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay. So I was saying that when if you are using, for those who are using different database name, okay, that means this one will be different. That means some of you are saying they're not using the same database name for the primary and standby, right? So that means this one will change for you, correct?
Yes.
It will change for you, but those one were the one who are using the same database name, right? That you are having the same database name. This one
Yes.
is different. Will differ. Does it make sense?
That you say if we use the same database name, the difference will be just the global name.
The global name, yes.
The ScoDB name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the global name now you put the GB unique name of the standby and the GB unique name of the primary. Yeah.
The problem.
Does it make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
Mm.
Excuse me,
So-
Gato, just a quick question for clarification.
Uh-huh.
If you do data guard for the container database guard that are pluggable of the, you go just create the standby for the pluggable for the container. Just
No. You care only about the container. Whatever you do is just at the container level. The only addition you have to perform is you need to create directories for the pluggable on the standby. You guys know
you say
only addition you have to do when you are having multi-tenancy. The only
yes.
thing you have to add on top of the non-container configuration is that you have to create physical directories for the pluggable on the standby as well. You guys know that on the primary, each pluggable have their own directory for the data file, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that means you have to create them as well on the standby. That's the only difference. But you focus only on the primary, on the container. You don't configure data guard on pluggable. Data guard is configured at the container level, at the root level. So the procedure will be the same. Only at the standby location, you have to create directory structure of the pluggable. So that means if your pluggable, you have two pluggable, PGB1 and PGB2. On the primary, the data files may be located on /oradata/acon/PGB1 and /oradata/acon/PGB2. On the standby as well, you should create /oradata/acon/PGB1 /oradata/acon/PGB2. Because when Arma will do the duplicate, Arma has to duplicate those pluggable and put the data file in that location.
I'm so sorry, I'm not getting. Can you explain one more time? I'm sorry.
Each pluggable
Yes.
is old data file, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So on the standby, if you already configure it, you started the configuration already?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you start the configuration of data guard, on the standby side, do you create directory structure for the standby?
For the standby, I created just like I was do for the non-container.
Yeah, I know. I'm talking about non-container. You already created a directory structure for the non-container.
For the non-container, I created the directory structure like Oradata / the same name.
The
same name, the non-container.
Okay. And you created the ADOM directory, correct?
The ADOM directory, yeah, the same name for the non-container.
Maybe the FR is already even existing there. So now that one you created only one Oradata/non-container name because you are dealing with a non-container. Now you have to create directories for pluggables now if you want to perform Arma duplicate of a container. So you have pluggables on the primary. Those pluggables also, their data file also have to reside somewhere on the standby. So you have to create their directory as well. The directory you created is for the root. Will be now for the root. Now, if you want to duplicate a container, you have to create a directory for the root, create a directory for each pluggable. So that when Arma will do the duplicate, it will put each pluggable data file in its directory.
But I go ask you a question. When we created the database and the VNC, we just specify the data for the data file for the container and the VNC. We ask us, we specify the data like if you put it like a Acon, just you put it or data /Acon. And I believe if you got maybe 5 pluggable or 3 pluggable inside, it's gonna be the same data.
I'm talking about container. Okay. And I'm on the standby now.
Okay.
You created these two.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, each pluggable should be stored somewhere because it's a container with pluggable.
Okay.
When you want the data of the pluggable of the primary to be stored, you have to create directory for each pluggable and the seed. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. The C, we have to create the data for the C2.
Yes. Once you check your Aura data and
Yes.
you see another directory, if you are using a container pluggable, you will see other directories below, right, for each pluggable, right?
Yes.
But they don't exist on the standby. So you have to create them physically so that ARMA will duplicate and use data here as well.
Okay. That's my question, because I was before confused. That's my question. Like, when we do the data guard, the standby go be the standby for the container or the non-container. And the standby we go find out, like, if you got standby, I'll go give example. If you got the container like this one, like the database like this one you have, and the standby you go have the 2 pluggable and the 1 seed.
You should have the same number of pluggable as well.
That's why we do. Okay, that's why we do this. Okay, the standby container. Okay.
Finish with the non-container first, right? Because this is the only difference between container and non-container.
Yes, that's the only difference for the pluggable.
Yes.
The non-container got just like one, and the container can have like most of pluggable inside.
That's the only difference. So if you know how to perform the duplicate whatever with non-container, you should not have an issue with containers. Should not.
Okay.
All right. So it means that's the first requirement. Okay, you guys should make sure your listener should list both the primary and the standby on both sides.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Go ahead, please.
Could you show the listener in this order standby?
Which one?
The one on your right. Yes. No, I'm talking about how the TNS entry is how the listener, how you configure it.
Should be the same now.
Oh, they're all the same. So you can just basically copy and paste. So you can just basically copy and paste.
Again, for you guys, right, it will be the same. Why? Because the global name will be the same. Okay, but in the cloud, for us, to make some stuff unique, the global name can be different. For us, it's different, but for you, it will be the same. Let me take an example. For us, you see here the global name is OMR. You don't see this _S here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention. There is no this _S here. don't have this.
Oh,
About Oracle, yes, but you see here that SID is the same here. So for you, definitely, right? If you decided, let's take someone who took, who decided to use different, different GB name for the standby. Okay, I want to take one scenario like that. Different GB name for the standby means that for that person, for the primary, the person will have ORCL, and for the standby, the person will have the other name the person choose, maybe ORCL_STB, ORCL_STB, and that will be the same thing on the standby. So that means on the standby as well, the GB name for the primary, right? You just copy and paste the same thing here, definitely. So the same thing will be present on the primary and standby.
okay, thank you.
Now, could you please also show us the P file?
Okay, I need to create that. I don't want, let me not show you what you got don't need. These are, there are some parameters you don't need here. You guys see now that on the standby now, let me show you something. Let me do the same here. Oh. You guys, if you guys pay attention to what, I know we should pay attention to log archives too. I will talk about it. But let's go from there are some parameters here, that is because this is a cloud P file, a lot of stuff in VM in the cloud. So you guys know some areas, okay? Let me display common areas you guys are familiar with. We have a data gap broker. I will talk about it again in a moment. That's a connection to the broker. So yes, what do you guys want to see here?
Everything.
Yeah, I just wanted to know how, because we were unsure on how to edit from the top. And then, so the control files. All right. So pretty much the only thing that we have to change the name is what?
The only thing, again, this P file can make you confused, right? It's not a regular. It doesn't look like you guys are familiar with. Okay, most of the metrics are, but just look at common one. This one you may not understand it because most of our stuff ASM manage. Okay, so I will not talk about it now, but you look crazy. Okay. If you see our control file here, it's also crazy. The name is crazy. So for you, you will put the location of where you want your control file to go. So yeah, for us, it's going to the FRA. So for you, do you want to keep the same path as in the primary? It's up to you. Okay, so you just put the path here, but make sure you create the directory physically. So that, okay. So if the path is different, make sure you use, make sure when you're using the duplicate, right, you use the GB file name convert so that Arma will know that, the location, the physical directory are different. Apart from that, what you will change the GB unique name, because the GB unique name is what we will change on the standby. GB name, for those who are using different GB name, we also change this one. This one, I don't need to talk about it. You guys already know GB file name convert. This is what I was talking about, the domain name. Because for us, we create a domain name. That's why you guys can see that all of them have this common domain name on the listener.ora. Because in the cloud, when we create a database, automatically Oracle allocates a domain name to that database. And we have a way of allocating that. So I don't want to throw more light on this. And what is interesting is, you guys are familiar with log archive config, okay? But it's what I'm more interested in. You guys can see that you may not, okay, let me see this one. Let me say log archive this one and come and see under here, log archive this one. This one, oh, where is that? Okay, this one, okay. So here, there's no difference for the log archive this one, no effect. But here you can see that here log archive this 2, okay? You see net timeout here, right? You see all these parameters, number of failure, sync, affirm, because, okay, I'm dealing with maximum availability, okay? That is why it's like that. Compression, whatever. But you see here that I have log archive 2, but here I don't have log archive 2. What does it mean? It means that if this standby, if for instance, right, this primary fails, and this standby takes over, this one becomes a new primary, you will now have a second destination for archive logs. You will not have a second destination for archive log. So that means archive log will go only in one location. That means log archive this one. But most of the time you want to set log archive 2, now log archive 2 will point to the primary, because here log archive 2 is pointing to the standby. Because if you see the GB unique name here, is the GB unique name of the standby. So this log archive 2, that's why the redo are going to the standby as well, because the log archive 2 is pointing to the standby. So it means that if now we have a failover or switchover, okay, that means on the standby side, the log archive 2 should point to the primary. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So in this configuration we have here, we cannot have a failback situation. So if you have a failover here, this one will never provision the other one to redo, because the redo will never cross the network from the standby to the primary. And they know why they did that, because we are in the cloud and this database is already duplicated in multiple geographical locations. So even if it fails in one location, we know how to catch it in another location. Okay, so we are not worried, we don't worry about it. But sometimes we have this database going down, or this one going down, and it's quite easy to fix that. Okay, so that is what I was saying for those who are configuring log archive 2. Now the GB unique name should be the GB unique name of the primary. All right. I think that's the only difference. Now, look, some people will not consider fault client fault server. They will configure fault client fault server only on. You see here we have fault client fault server twice. We have fault client fault server. Yeah, on the primary, the fault server is equal. You know, this is a name related to the standby. And the fault client is equal to this one. This is a name related to the primary. Okay. It means that fault server will be created on the standby, and this fault client will be created on the primary. So if there is something wrong on the standby, the fault server will contact the fault client, and the automatic resolution will take place. Now, why do we need to put both again here? Now, in this scenario now, the fault client now is different. It's the same. Who did this data there? Okay, it looks different. Let me see. The fault client is Weimar PRAI. Here is SEC. So they are different. So it means now in this scenario, in case there's a failover or switchover, now the fault client now will reside on the primary, and now the fault server, okay, will reside on the primary, and the fault client will reside on the standby. So basically you can see that it's a reverse, just that this one is in cap, this one is in lowercase, and here this one is in cap, this one is in lowercase, but it's the same thing. So I don't just want to confuse that much, but what happened is those parameters, sometimes you need to set them on both the primary and standby so that even if there's a whole change, they can still ensure automatic gap detection and resolution. They will still ensure that, okay? Because if you set only fault client here, maybe fault client here and fault server here, okay. What will happen then if this primary fails? Which one will be the fault client, which one will be the fault server? That's why most of the time you put both, so that in case there's a whole change, those processes will still work. I wanted to show something. Okay, when I was no, let me see that. So the protection mode can tell you, okay, whether you're using maximum reach. It was obvious for us to see that, but you can validate from here. Protection mode you are using. Okay, now how to know whether they're in sync? These are the validation you guys have to do. The listener should listen to both. Now, how to know whether they're in sync or not? You are seeing the sequence here. This is at the current sequence at which Oracle is now. If somebody just come and do like this, you can know some of you will do like that. You see, somebody will say, oh, my data guide is not working. Correct? Because you will try to we think that maybe the sequence should be the same. Why is the sequence 0 here? Why is it 0? Simply because on this standby, we are not doing any operation. So there is no log generated. The online redo of this standby is not active. It's not working. We are not doing JML because JML are the ones to generate redo. And this one, but the standby is open in read-only mode. So you cannot perform a JML. So normally there should not be any redo generated. So that's normal to have a 0. But you guys will configure and come and do archive log list, and you will see that the standby is not working. But this is not how to check the sequence on the standby, because what you are seeing here are information related to the online redo log of the standby, not the standby redo logs or the archive redo log. So that's why you should issue this command. This is one of the commands you can issue. This command will validate whether the RFS MRPs are working. You can focus on the MRP. You will see that the MRP, you can compare now the sequence here and the sequence here. You can see that it's the same, 32, 245, 32. Now, that's what you guys should be doing to verify. How will you know now that the data guide is functioning? You should do multiple ATA system switch log file. Oh, you're completed already. Okay. So now I performed trace switch log file. So you saw it move from 245 to 248. Let's see if this one picked the change. You see now that it already moved to 248. So that means whenever you're doing a switch log file here, the MRP should be able to pick up the change. If I just try to stop this MRP here now, somebody will receive a ticket. So I should not just play around like that. I should just be checking stuff. So that is the second validation. That's the validation you guys should do after the data configuration. Don't just see Arman duplicate complete is completed and you are happy. Oh, I succeeded data guide. Make sure that they are communicating. Make sure that logs can move from primary to the standby. Now, another part of the assignment was for you guys to configure the data guard broker. It's for you. This is how you call the broker. You don't need to set any environment. Just put don't forget this slash. If I just put this slash, see, you can connect, okay, but there's some stuff you cannot do. See, not log on. So you are there, but you're not connected. So you need to connect. And if you want to connect, you may need to get some password here, and that's not good. So the easiest way to do that is just to put a slash. And Oracle will tell you are connected as sys data guide. That is for 12C most of the time. So you see here, sys data guide. Now I can issue the same command. This command is valid on the primary or on the standby. So the data guard broker is installed both on the primary and the standby server. Oh, sorry, I forgot the slash. You see, connected as sys data guide. This is the administrator of data guide. Show configuration. You see now here when on broker you issue show configuration, you can easily see the protection mode. without having to type a command. You can easily see the primary. You can easily see the standby. You can see faster failover is enabled or disabled. Faster failover is what triggers automatic failover in case you want the failover to be done automatically. Okay. And I told you that, guys, that most environments don't enable it. Not because it's automatic, not that everybody will do that. No, not all environments do that. And you can see here, if there's something wrong, you will see an error here. Let me see if I have a sample ticket on that. I not talk too much about what are tickets, okay? I don't want you guys to. We talk about this. We talk about ticket, at the end. After all the project, I will talk about the environment, how my environment look like, the tool we used, everything. So we're not there yet. So, for instance, if you have an error at the broker level, the data broker can show you. I want to show you guys what the broker will display as error. When I issue show configuration, instead of putting, you see here. So for instance, in my scenario here, when you just issue show configuration, you can put verbose, or you can just put show configuration. It will tell you if there's something wrong. So that's why here, everything is okay. That's why you see success, okay? But if there's something wrong, you will see an error here. So here you can easily identify sometimes, most of the time, you can identify the issue from here, okay? And you can see that something is wrong, not the exact issue, but you can see that something is wrong from here, okay? So I will not talk too much about this ticket because I may throw more light on it when we get to, when we get to that level. Okay, when we get to ticketing system, I will come back on this ticket just for illustration purpose. Okay, so today I'll just focus on some broker stuff. So that means you guys should be able to configure the broker to see something like this, both on the primary and the standby. And from the broker, I told you guys from the broker, we can do a lot of stuff. From the broker, we can connect to the primary and the standby individually and perform some changes and enable some parameters. From the broker, we can add a new standby. Let's assume you already have one standby. You want to add a second one or a third one. You can do that here from the broker. For a broker, you can do failover switchover. If you want to do a switchover, for instance, I just do help switchover. You just have to type this command, switchover to. Just put a standby name. That's it. On the broker. On the primary, you just do some alter database or alter system like that. It's also easy. So if you want to do the failover, it's the same thing as well. Okay. So you see failover here. Just issue help failover. Oracle will give you the exact command. If you want to do failover immediate, it's like the immediate, we just let you know that any transaction that was taking place on the primary, okay, you want those transactions to be completed first before the failover takes place or before the switchover takes place. So that you don't lose data while doing the switchover or the failover. Okay. So let's assume that there was a transaction in the primary. You are switching over. The transaction should be committed. Okay. So that it's like the shutdown immediate, right? Shutdown immediate, all the ongoing transaction, right? They will, Oracle will make sure that there is no data lost. That's the same thing here. Okay. So it's just easy. Failover to, switch over to. So if I do it here automatically with failover, okay. Yeah, basically that is the same. You cannot see the observer here because the observer is on a different server. So we don't have it here on this server. And I don't have access to that server because I don't need that access. I'm not the one doing, I don't need the observer to do that. Okay, so myself, I can trigger a failover or a switchover attribute here, operation. So sometimes the data gap broker, even though if you see an error here, the broker has its own lock. Okay, let me see if I remember the exact location. I know it's in the alert lock location. Okay, it's in the alert lock location. No, I don't want the alert lock. I want the broker lock. Anyway, we can get there. If you go to, Oracle base / diagnosis / RDBMS / OMR / OMR / trace, and you list everything that ends with .lock, you may see the broker lock here. These are the lock, the broker lock. So sometimes you may have more detail here, but both will help you. The alert lock can show you everything. So sometimes you can have the detail from this broker lock. Okay. And sometimes it may give you more details of what went wrong. You can see here configuration. If there's anything wrong, it will tell you. Okay. But the issue got resolved. That's why you see warning, success, warning, success, warning, success. These are just warning. But if there's something wrong, you may see the error right from here. Okay, but the alert lock can also help. So that is basically my expectation from you guys. Okay, make sure make sure the listener can communicate. Make sure you configure till the end, and now the primary and standby can communicate as well. You validate that way to make sure that it's working well. You configure the broker, and you can now failover switchover, as I showed you guys, right? It's very easy. If you on Google, you will find a lot of good document on that, how to failover, how to switchover, how to configure the broker. Everything is online. So yeah, basically, I think apart from that, again, I don't want to spend time on ticket now because I will explain ticket. That is another part. That is part of the summary. I will talk about tickets. So yeah, I think I'm done. Any question? Any question on this?
I want to ask a question.
Okay.
Yeah, when you want the listener to be communicating with like on the primary server, you want the listener to communicate with the standby database. So I don't know, would you specify the port? Excuse me, the like the host name of the other server, or you won't change the host name?
Let's see. Oh, we can no longer see the listener now. Yeah, you see that. Oh, why is it that short? I need to add the. Why is it that short?
I think because you always clear your screen. That's why.
Oh, it can be small. Okay. Okay, yeah, maybe that's why. Yeah, that's true. Increase it. Okay, so let me show you again the content of that listener. This is the Oracle home. Okay, the host name is only at this level. The host name of the server where you are. It's only here. The port of that listener is here. But on the SI Jasper listener, you just need to specify the Oracle home and other parameters. Okay, so on the primary, you put the host name of the primary. On the standby, you put the host name of the standby. On the standby, you put the port of the standby.
Okay.
The port can be different as well. So it's not mandatory for the port to be the same. But the Oracle home should be the same. Primary and standby. All right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Question? Any question for me? Any concern? Doubt?
So what time is the class on Friday?
Okay. Friday. What time you guys want? Oh, let me see. It should be 1 hour and a half or 1 or 1 hour and a half. Let me see. Okay, I want to make it at 6 p.m. Okay, make it at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah, just to check people issues. 6 p.m. Let's set at 6 p.m. Are we good here? All right, if you are good, you can disconnect, okay? It's not mandatory for us to stay here, all right? So just wanted to see my expectation, to show you my expectations, what I want to see from you guys. And that's it. All right, so then let's meet Friday then at 6 p.m. Again, it's maximum of, okay, it goes, our shift is from 6 to 8. So it means if it goes up to 8, it's because a lot of people are having challenges. Otherwise, we also finish earlier. So if you have only one person complaining, we finish earlier. So I'm just here just to check issues. If you have an issue that we can resolve as a class, we do that together so that other people can learn. If you don't have any issue, we disconnect. Okay, that is what projects are. Okay, guys, if there's no question, we can disconnect, right?
Right.
Okay. See you guys Friday, okay? Thank you for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
C'est qui ça?
C'est qui? C'est ton père.
Résil.
C'est comment?
Ça va.